Hello and welcome back to Big Nostalgia, the podcast where we look at the games from our childhood. What went into their development? Are they still fun to play today? What quirky stuff can we find out about them? Anyway, I am haddowinc.
And I am VicStar.
This week we are looking at, at the beginning of the season, we looked at Mario 64, which kind of was Nintendo's version, and then Banjo-Kazooie came out after that.
Yeah, Mario 64 was kind of like, I don't know, Nintendo's little baby, wasn't it?
And then Banjo-Kazooie came out. Last season we looked at Mario Kart 64, and this time we're looking at the rare answer to that. What I meant to get to in this very long intro was we're doing Diddy Kong Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing! Rare's version of, basically Mario Kart.
Although it didn't start that way, actually. So it's quite interesting when you read up about kind of the history of this game. Because according to an old article of Games TM magazine, it started as a caveman/time travel real-time strategy game.
Really?
Which sounds like something Rare would absolutely have been working on.
Yeah, but sounds completely different from what it turned out to be.
So then it became a racing game with Timber the Tiger in the lead, who was one of the characters. And for a while it was known as Wild Cartoon Kingdom and then Adventure Racers. And for a while it was being developed under the title of Pro-Am 64. So this is a reference to a game that Rare made during the NES days called RC Pro-Am, which was a racing game.
Okay.
So when they showed this demo to Miyamoto, he suggested Diddy Kong as the lead, which reportedly the dev team weren't a fan of at first, but then they kind of came around to the idea when they started developing it, and also having kind of, there's lots of popularity around the Donkey Kong brand at the time because of the Rare developed Donkey Kong Country games.
Why not Donkey Kong, though? Was there a reason?
Because Donkey Kong was probably the reason was Donkey Kong was in Mario Kart.
Oh, yeah. So they didn't want to mix too much.
Yeah, so I would hazard that was it. And also Diddy Kong was actually Rare created that character.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So, Rare were behind the modern look of Donkey Kong, because when Donkey Kong Country was getting developed by them, the last DK game had been like the arcade game.
Oh, okay.
So they gave him what we know as the
classic
look.
Donkey Kong look.
Yeah, and they created most of the extended Kong family.
So they knew Diddy Kong. I wonder why they didn't want to use him at first.
Possibly, they wanted to try and do something original IP or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, a bit away from the Nintendo brand, I suppose.
There's a bit of there's few developers that have said, oh no, that's not what it was like at all. A few that like swear by that's what it's like. So as always, take these kind of bits around the development with a pinch of salt.
Yeah.
Unlike some bigger titles, which have lots of interviews and stuff around them, some of this stuff is Dev A said this, Dev B said that. But anyway, so they're working on this game. It was Pro-Am 64, got rebranded to Diddy Kong Racing, and it was getting developed alongside Banjo-Kazooie, kind of as like the second game at Rare, because a lot of the attention was going into Banjo. But when it became apparent that Banjo wasn't going to be ready for Christmas 1997, they were like, well, we got to release something for this like Christmas period. So they just poured all this extra resource into getting Diddy Kong Racing ready, which then released in November 97.
Oh, okay. So at a point it wasn't ready and they just sort of like, money. You make it ready.
Yeah, well, possibly it was just more ready than Banjo. So they were like, which one can we, pardon the racing pun, which one can we get across the line in time for Christmas?
Wah. But I suppose a racing game is easier to get out than an original concept, like with the storyline and the graphics and stuff like that.
I mean, you say that. There was, if you recall, a storyline to Diddy Kong Racing.
No, I don't recall.
Because I'd forgotten about this, but then somebody posted like the text from the instruction manual on the Wikipedia page for it, and it's kind of brilliant. It's kind of classic Rare. So, according to the instruction manual, which is where the story was mostly conveyed back in those days, before you could have complex cutscenes, The story begins with Diddy Kong sat on his porch of his treehouse, opening a letter, which reads, "Dear Diddy, help. The message is from his old friend Timber, the son of the Kong's guests, the Tigers." Diddy reads the note and decides that his friends, Banjo and Conker, should join him in the fight against Whizpig. Diddy calls Squawks to deliver the message to his other friends to meet him there. While Diddy is in the jungle, a Kremling follows him, and that's one of the other playable characters as a Kremling. And the bit I really like about this is that Timber, for some reason, just really doesn't want his parents to find out because his parents aren't home for the weekend. And it's like framing it as if he's had like a massive party and a boozer, but an evil wizard pig has taken over.
Yeah, no, I hate it when wizard pigs take over. That's
God,
definitely
Mum and Dad
something
are
you
gonna
don't
be
want
so
your
pissed.
parents to know.
They're gonna
Feels
be so
like wizard
angry.
pig should be a code for like a drug or something.
Come over and do some whiz pig.
It takes over.
Yeah, no, they go and they find that Whizpig has carved his face into the side of the mountain, because if you remember, that was kind of like the overworld.
Yeah.
And that's like the story. And then the game is to defeat Whizpig by racing his minions and then racing him.
Fair
And
enough.
apparently each other. And that's the kind of thing, like, the game didn't need a story mode.
No.
But it is kind of charming in its own kind of weird way.
And it feels very rare, like, sort of story. This big evil entity takes over. Like, let's be honest, the banjo-kazooie storyline doesn't really make sense in a way. Oh, I want to be pretty. She's pretty. I'll steal her. I'll kidnap her. Ah ha 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 ha. You know? So
Yeah,
Rare's logic in their storylines are always charming rather than logical.
They're kind of almost like modern retellings of fairy tales, aren't they?
Yeah, like... Well, I'm not sure about any fairy tale about, oh, my parents are away, don't tell them about the pig.
We gotta race him to stop him. There's a parable in there for children somewhere.
Yeah.
So, in the colourful cast of characters, who do you remember?
Banjo, obviously.
Well, it's the first appearance of Banjo and Conker, because their games hadn't been released yet.
Oh, yeah. Obviously Diddy. And then I'm guessing the Whiz Pig. And, as you said, Minions.
Yeah, so you had Timber the Tiger, who was originally going to be like the lead of the game when it was Pro-Am 64. You had Tip Tup the Turtle, who also did appear in the Banjo games.
Where?
So it's the Tip Tup Choir in Banjo-Kazooie,
Yeah.
and then he's on a beach in Jolly Roger's Lagoon in the Banjo-Tooie.
Well...
I got Crunch the Kremling. And
not
then-
Crunch the Kremlin.
Bumper the Badger, Pipsy the Mouse, Taj the Genie, who's the one that like let you be the different vehicles, Drumstick the Rooster, and
Where did they get these names?
TT the Time Trial Clock.
There was a clock.
Yeah. Because he was the
Okay.
time trial
Oh,
clock.
obviously. The
And the
sense in this...
bosses, the minions, were Tricky the Triceratops, Bluey the Walrus, Bubbler the Octopus, and Smokey the Dragon.
These names are so rare, aren't they? They're so... Like, you can totally tell Rare made this.
They're either alliteration or puns or both.
Yeah.
So let's get to, like... it was a racing game, but what made it different from other racing games was the karts. But not just the karts. You had the boats, God, I've got it written down here somewhere. You know, the inflatable boats.
Oh, yeah.
The windcraft, I don't know. And the planes.
That was my favourite thing to drive. Like, the boats were pretty cool because you could proper slide. But those planes were so much fun.
Yeah, so the cars were like best all around.
Yeah.
The planes were like faster, but if you got hit, you'd like
Oh, yeah.
tumble to the floor, and you'd had like less acceleration, and like you couldn't.
And then you'd have
recover
to
as
power
well.
up again, wouldn't you, to fly?
And like the boats were obviously best over water, but they just didn't corner very well.
No, their sliding was fun, but it was hard to control.
So I think that was kind of what set it apart back in the day. I mean, since then you've had stuff like Sonic Racing Transformed, which I think has reused the concept. But yeah, like that was it. They were like, Mario Kart is just this. What can we do?
Let's add more.
Let's add boats and planes and make it so I think on almost every level you could be
All
like,
of them.
All of them. There's only like
Yeah.
a few like lava levels I think where you had to be the plane or the boat.
And then, like, water levels, you'd have to be the boat or the plane.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, it really did like change things, and I think the also talking about the racing, like the different race courses as well, like you can possibly see a bit of when it really was like a caveman game, because its first world was the Dino Domain.
Yeah, so you can see the elements of maybe stuff they were planning for the original concept that they've just merged into their end product.
And like a lot of these games we talk about, I've got really, really strong, vivid memories of the first two areas, and then it becomes a bit shit.
Yeah.
I remember bits after that.
Yeah, because we didn't really unlock a lot of things.
Well, the thing is, when you're a kid, is like you play like the first few worlds, and then you get stuck, so you just start it again.
Yeah, and there's a lot of fun just to play the first two worlds. So what other levels were there beside the dinosaur?
So do you remember the snow levels? Because that was the second area.
Yes.
Yeah, because those are the ones possibly I remember the music from most vividly as well.
And I liked how the design, of course, you could play as boat, plane or car. So it had different bits, didn't it? Like higher bits. So it was a bit of a different ride if you were in a plane.
Yeah,
Which made
so
it quite individual.
There's only 20 race courses, but each course had like secret ways, the way that you should go for each vehicle, and like secrets hidden. It was
very
absolutely
involved.
mad. Yeah. So the world, well, they were all connected by kind of like an overworld. So we kind of referenced that before. You get kind of dropped in by this big whiz pig face, because that's what you do when you invade an island when the kids' parents aren't home, a bit like Home Alone.
Obviously.
You carve your face into the wall.
Why not? You know, you really want to make yourself feel like at home.
And then like the different, like the overworld was reasonably basic, if I remember right. Like there's a few secrets hidden around, and certain things you need to be boat or plane to access, which the genie could do for you like whenever.
Mm.
But for the most part, it was reasonably open and quite simple. But that kind of worked. Like you're not gonna go driving around Grunty's lair.
No.
So and then the soundtrack was work from the great David Wise.
Wait, was Grunty's Lair a racetrack?
No.
No. Sorry.
Grunty's Actually, I don't know if Grunty's Lair was a racetrack in Banjo Pilot, but we're gonna kind of touch on that in a bit.
Okay.
So it's David Wise that did the soundtrack. So there's kind of the two composers that were knocking out hit after hit at Rare. There's Grant Kirkhope, who was working on Banjo-Kazooie, and David Wise, who did the Donkey Kong Country games, and then this. And like we're saying, the music, some of the tracks are just... It's like last week, well, not last week, but last week in the release schedule, when we were talking about 1080 snowboarding.
Yeah, a bit forgettable.
Well, no, I was going to say, like, there are certain tracks that just stick in your head.
Oh, yeah, but, like, there's some tracks, like, they're just generic. Like those, it's just another snowboarding song again. It's a bit the same for this as well. Some songs you're just like, meh.
I think as a whole it wasn't like...
As
it
bad?
was good for a racing game. It was definitely better than 1080 snowboarding.
Yeah,
because they were like
that wasn't
upbeat,
hard.
cartoony jingles.
Yeah. No, but... Yeah, I can see what you mean, but none of them really... You know... I can remember a few, but none of them were like, wow.
Yeah, like I can remember the main theme, and I can remember some of the snow themes. But
But I suppose that's the side effect of playing those levels so much.
That's true. It could just be I played the snow levels the most. So kind of within the game, like the mechanics, the bananas are the equivalent of coins. So the more bananas you got, like the faster you would go, just like the coins in Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm.
And then the items, I'd forgotten this, but they're kind of like the Lego Racing ones in that you've got like 5 types, but each type has like 3 stages.
So that was another way it was different from the Mario Kart.
Ironically, we're now comparing it to Lego Racers instead, but I think this came out first. And unlike Lego Racers, where you had like the white blocks, which were like the amplifiers, this you just had to get the same colour a few times in a row.
Oh, so not too bad then.
Arguably simpler.
Yeah.
So the items were kind of your standards. You had the red balloons were missiles, the blue balloons were boosts, yellow balloons were shield, green was like the one that you drop behind you, so it was like poison traps, like bubbles to catch people. And then you had rainbow, which was a magnet.
Yeah. Everyone loves a rainbow magnet.
I too hate it when I can't think of a 5th colour.
Even though the rainbow has so many colours, no, we must use rainbow.
So that's, yeah, and like the story kind of progresses, and then you race Wizpig once, and then you get like the 5th unlockable land, which I don't really have very strong memories of. Possibly we were just bad at the game and never got that far. Which was called Future Funland, which was like space themed. And then
I can't remember that at all.
After that, you raced Wizpig and he was in a rocket, and when you beat him, his rocket just kind of launches him off into space, and that's like the end of the game.
So it never really explains how the tiger explains to his parents why there's a pig face in the wall.
No, it turns into the genie's face.
Oh, hopefully the genie is a good friend.
Yeah, made of gold apparently. So that arguably is harder to explain.
Yeah, and harder to get rid of, unless it was already like that before.
So then, like, it ends with the classic rare cliffhanger. Like you hear the evil laugh, and you're like, oh, maybe he'll come back from space.
Maybe, but no.
Maybe he'll
just
come
in
back
case.
Maybe he'll come back from outer space, just to walk in and see you there with that sad look upon your face.
But you've already changed the key. So now go. Walk out the door. Anyway, yes.
There was a new game plus, which was like had harder CPUs, and then like the collectibles were in more difficult places. But aside from that, yeah, that was like the adventure. Obviously, you had your standard modes aside from that, which is like your versus mode, your time trial modes. And each level, like, rare games and collectibles, man.
Yeah.
Like, there's hidden coins, hidden keys.
It's like chalk and it's like cheese and crackers, isn't it? It's just meant to be.
Yeah, you don't get one. You don't get them apart from each other.
Well, that's something I love about.
Collectibles.
Well, that's something I love about Rare as a company. When they were Rare as a company, they just put. It didn't matter if it was a racing game or like a fully fledged game. They always put 110% in and always made it so interesting to play. So it was so much replayability even for a racing game.
Yeah, and another thing that's like quite trademark Rare is that there were codes as well.
Yeah,
they do love their codes. So
yeah.
Looking down the list, I did remember a few of them. I think the one that we used, at least on 1 or 2 occasions, was Joint Venture. Do you remember that? It was a code that made the co-op, story mode co-op, sorry.
That is very handy, isn't it? Because so many of these games just stick with the one player, and actually, definitely before online playing and multiplayer and all this kind of stuff, the best way to do it was with your buddy in the room who had the other controller, and it's nice to join in, you know?
And actually, they're quite forward-thinking when it came to that stuff, because when you were playing in co-op mode, for the bosses, the game would alternate who faced them. So it kind of made me think it was like what they ended up doing in A Hat in Time. Shameless plug alert. We're playing A Hat in Time in a different series. Go watch it.
Go and watch it.
But it's about having the co-op mode where second player doesn't feel like lesser.
Yeah, it's just because you're playing second player doesn't mean you don't get involved in the main storyline. You don't get involved. Yeah, it's yeah, that's very advanced. Definitely, if you think of the time this came out.
So some of the other codes, you had the code Arnold, which made everyone large. And I was wondering whether that was potentially
Arnold
a reference to...
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what made. That's what instantly came to mind.
You had teeny weenies, which were small players.
Yeah.
Double vision, which allowed multiple people to be the same character. And the one that I just like the words they chose for it is "Who did this?" which shows you the credits.
Who did this?
Which is what obviously Timber was hoping his parents wouldn't say when they came home.
Who did this, pig face?
And then just because I was looking up stuff around this game, stuff that was early, like you can find online like placeholder graphics and stuff like that, and like placeholder like character profiles, like from the side. And interestingly, they never actually made one for Banjo or Conker. Like the early ones are actually from the other characters.
Really?
The placeholder files that they had for Banjo was just a black square that said Banjo on it, just text. So it was really interesting, considering you'd think like Banjo and Conker were like probably
their
the
main characters for the other ones, yeah.
The ones where they had a clearer view of what they would look like, or maybe because they were so big in other games, they were waiting on those designs to be like final.
Or no spoilers.
Maybe, yeah.
They're worried.
In case of leaks.
Yeah, put too much information, then people wouldn't want to check out their own games.
Although that was just for development, obviously. In the final game, they're all there.
Yeah.
So anyway, now is the big question. Are you ready for the big question?
Yes.
The big question. VicStar.
Yes.
Do you prefer Diddy Kong Racing or Mario Kart 64?
Mario Kart 64. Sorry.
Why?
I played it more, which is a big part of it. I preferred the characters because I played Super Mario 64. I know Mario's the main character, and of course Peach is like a unplayable character and Bowser was a big bad, but I just feel like I knew the characters a bit better. Definitely, as I played different Mario games as well, where you could play with Yoshi and as Luigi, even though he wasn't my favourite character. And I felt that even though the graphics were quite similar because of the time frame it came out, I just felt the Mario Kart was better graphics. Even though you could do less with the cars, and they probably had less variety of like items and stuff like that. Mario Kart sticks more clearly in my head. I know more of the songs, I know more of the racetracks, and I know more of the characters. So, yeah. What would you say? Same question.
So it's interesting, like reading over, like poring over obviously all the information and like thinking back to playing it, objectively speaking, take the familiar characters out and Diddy Kong Racing is probably a better game. Like on paper it's probably better because it had more stuff. It was, but then it's kind of like the when we talked about Donkey Kong 64, just more stuff did not make it like the game you'd go to.
How many items did they have in that game?
And especially speaking from a point of nostalgia, if I just want something easy to get into for the evening, possibly because it's just very simple, Mario Kart 64 I opt for more often than Diddy Kong Racing. I still enjoy Diddy Kong Racing, still rate it very highly as a game.
Yeah.
But as soon as you're like, and this collectible to open up this, to go to this, to go to this, it's great. It makes it a much more substantial racing game. And that's why I say on paper it's probably better.
But sometimes you can't just go with what's on paper. You have to go with how you feel about the game. There's something about Mario Kart. Yeah, just an easy, not worry about it. I don't have to worry about the controls. I don't have to worry about the characters. I can just sit down and play and battle. Gotta love a bit of battle. But I'm not saying, Diddy Kong Racing was bad.
No.
And as you said, on paper, with all the levels and the items and the secret tracks and
And it was well received at the time. I mean, it was just compared to Mario Kart 64 a lot because I think that had only just come out.
And it's hard not to compare such similar racing style games on the same device with characters like, well, Diddy Kong is just the nephew of Donkey Kong. I mean, it's one of those, isn't it?
And it makes me wonder where they could have taken that property if they'd stayed with Nintendo, whether it would have been like a rival to Mario Kart throughout the years. Because as far as party racing games go, there's been some good ones, but nothing's really reached that notoriety. But that doesn't mean that they didn't plan some follow-ups. So earlier you mentioned Grunty's Lair being a track, and I said, I don't know, maybe it's one in Banjo Pilot. Well, Banjo Pilot started life as a follow-up to Diddy Kong Racing, but then as a part of Microsoft buying Rare and losing the permissions to use all the Kongs, it became Banjo Pilot, and it's published for Game Boy Advance by THQ instead.
I've never heard of that game. Did it do very well?
You bought that game for me.
Did I?
Yeah, when I was like 8.
That was a substantial amount of time ago.
Substantial. But that was, yeah, so it was banjo characters instead, and it had like levels based off like Spiral Mountain.
I remember that game.
There we go.
Yeah, Tooty. You could play as Tooty, you could play as... Yeah.
Yeah. See, you remembered.
Yeah. Sorry.
Maybe we'll do an episode on that at some point.
Yeah.
And a different sequel is in the works for the GameCube called Donkey Kong Racing, and that would have included Donkey Kong, obviously. And that would have included like riding rhinos, and it was going to be like this full-blown sequel. But then, obviously, because of the Microsoft buyout, it was cancelled.
Yeah.
What did eventually get made, however, was a remake for Diddy Kong Racing, which I've never actually got round to playing. I would be kind of curious, is they made a remake for the DS, so they made Diddy Kong Racing DS.
Did they?
Yeah, it was a remake.
Oh, wow. So was it supposed to follow on, or...?
No, I think it was just like the original, the same characters, same tracks, but it was just around the same time as they made Super Mario 64 DS.
It'd be interesting to see what they did with the graphics.
Yeah, see if that was kind of like a big uptick in like visual quality or whatever. But yeah, never got round to it. And then they've not really, well, I guess because obviously all the IP stuff, they've not really done anything with it since. Do you reckon we'll get a ukulele racing attempt at some point?
Oh, I hope not. Oh, I hope not. Although it would be fun to play as the bee or the duck.
That's true. Well, apparently the Impossible Layer, that ukulele sequel, is apparently really good. I've just not got over the kind of very okayness that was ukulele. Anyway, that's another episode for another time. For another time. But we're talking about Diddy Kong Racing. So, closing remarks. Is there anything you kind of want to say about this game to close off?
It's one of those games, isn't it? I did enjoy playing it, but as we've said in our own opinion part, that I just preferred Mario Kart. It's not, it doesn't make Diddy Kong bad, and I did love the planes, especially. They were my favourite. Because of course there's no other racing game quite like it that you could do that sort of option. But yeah, it's a shame Rare could never have a chance to develop it further and to see really what they could have done with the franchise.
Yeah,
it's just kind of come into, classic history now, isn't it? Retro gaming.
Yeah, no, I agree with you majorly. It was a good game. It had loads to do. It was packed with stuff, as Rare games always are. I think I'd still go for Mario Kart. Possibly it is just nostalgia. But yeah, it's one of those things you do have to question, where would that franchise be if it did continue.
Yeah. Well, I hope that's been informative and given you a little insight into Diddy Kong Racing.
Yes, thank you for watching this video today. If you liked it, be sure to leave us a comment on your thoughts on the game. Subscribe for more episodes. We've got weekly videos coming out at the moment on different retro games. Next week we are covering Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, so we're sticking in the racing category. I realised it's the third week in a row.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. We just played a lot of racing games as kids.
Hey, it's a good
if you want,
multiplayer.
if you want to get updates during the week, you can follow us on Twitter at abridgebk. Other than that, you can watch our Hat and Time Let's Play on the haddowinc channel. There'll be a card at the end of this video. And we've got a series called Abridged of the Wild, which I think the first episode is probably out by now. Recording this in advance, I have no idea.
Check it out.
Yeah, check it out if it's released.
Yeah. If it's released. If not, you'll have to wait.
Just watch the trailer.
Well, I've been
anyway,
VicStar.
I've been haddowinc. Thank you very much for watching.
And we'll hear you, come and listen to us next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bien Ian.
Do 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 do.
Bien Ian.
Do 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 do.
Bien Ian.
Do 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 do.
Big nostalgia.
Yeah.